Welcome to Quantum Flux, the podcast of non-local science fiction magazine and nonlocalsci-fi.com. I'm your host, the editor of Non-Local Science Fiction, Dan Dombrowski. The first issue of Non-Local Science Fiction is available now. It features 8 fantastic short stories and the first chapters of 2 thrilling serials. You can buy DRM-free copies of the first issue on nonlocalsci-fi.com, and you can also find the magazine on sites like Amazon, iBooks, and the Nook Marketplace by Barnes & Noble. Be sure also to check out nonlocalsci-fi.com for all kinds of additional content, including movie and book reviews, rereads and rewatches of genre classics, and the forums at nonlocalsci-fi.com, an open community for sci-fi lovers from around the world, where you can talk to authors from our latest issues and discuss the goings-on in the world of science fiction. I'm joined today by Jim Rudnick, author of the short story The Assistant Portkeeper, which appears in issue number 1 of Non-Local Science Fiction. Jim joins us today from his home in Waterdown, Ontario, outside of Hamilton. Welcome to the podcast, Jim.
Thanks, Dan. Nice to be here.
So let's start out talking about The Assistant Portkeeper. Give us a quick intro to the story for those who haven't read it.
It's a slice, if you will, of this whole other world, other environment, other sci-fi community world building that I've created, which exists out on the rim of our galaxy. That's about from here, from where we're sitting, maybe say 28,000 light years out. It's at the edge. It's a small little area. I call it the Rimworld Confederacy. I had to come up with something, so that's what I called it. There are about 40 worlds, alien and human. It exists in the 3,000, or 3 would be the first number of the millennia that this area exists in. And it's just a short little piece. I must admit, I've done some research on this in my own brain. I guess you call that reflection, don't you? I've reflected on why I tend to write this kind of thing. And I tend to write a slice of life, but in a whole other world with a whole other set of characters, with aliens, etc., etc. But honestly, it really comes down to those people, even 1,000 years in the future and thousands of light years away, they tend to do the same stuff we do. They're governed by the same characteristics, personality, traits, features, benefits. They seem to be the same as everybody else. So this slice, the assistant portkeeper, is about a guy who's a very, very small, teensy little bureaucrat at a port where a landing port where for this world ships come down and people unload cargo and other people load new cargo and away they go wherever the heck else it is. It's sort of the Grand Central Station of this planet, called Juno, actually, the name of the planet. And it's just a little slice of life about this one fella. And he, like most bureaucrats, I'm sure you've all been to your own local motor vehicle office for your state, or you've been to somewhere to try to get a passport, or been down to City Hall to get a license or a permit. You know what it's like. It's probably not the kind of job most of us would enjoy. Yet this fellow does seem to enjoy it. And of course, like others, even 1,000 years in the future and some odd light years away, he still has the same ability that we all do. He gets upset. He sees things his way. And it actually, like I write, it just poured out. In literally about 7 hours, I sat and wrote this piece, and I've edited and reviewed, etc., since. But it just all came out, and it exactly, if you will, envisions what it might be like out on the rim of the galaxy. I really enjoyed this piece, and I have a dozen or two of this kind of thing in the same community, and then, of course, my novels are all in the same area, too.
Now, this story specifically, you wrote this a number of years ago, right?
Yes, I did, as a matter of fact. It was about 10 years ago. It was the second piece I'd written in this world environment that I created.
And it was published before on a website called Aphelion, which is an online sci-fi, non-professional literary magazine that publishes stories by amateur authors. Can you talk a bit about Aphelion and about the community of authors and how you got involved there?
Yeah, that was really interesting. Again, like most people, I use Google. I check the world using Google. So I typed in, I believe, one day, maybe 15 years ago, or maybe not quite that, well, certainly in the 2000s. And I just typed in online science fiction magazines. And a whole bunch of them came up. There were at the time a whole bunch of them in Australia, which I noticed immediately, and I thought, wow, that's cool. The other side of the world, and they're writing stuff down there too that's really cool. So I went and looked at a few and read a few. Most offer, here, try this, try that kind of thing, no charge, etc., because they're online. And I thought they're pretty good. And then I found this Aphelion people, and I thought, oh, okay. Oh, look, wait, they've got something I hadn't seen before. They had a complete set of forums where every issue they said, here's the latest issue of the magazine, online magazine. You can go and read them, and then you can answer or ask questions about any of them right here. And we'll let the author know that we published that version that version of the forum that month. It was actually, because they publish monthly. And if they want, they can come on and they can ask you for help. They can say, what did I do here? Or, gee whiz, I used too many adverbs in that phrase, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, and it was the second piece I ever had published, it was sort of I get published, which is cool. I get to see my byline, and we all know what a writer thinks about that. And the third thing was, I might actually get some people who are better writers than me to look at it and say, gee, you messed up here, or gee, you didn't do that one that well, etc. So for me, it was really an eye-opener. I sent it. It was accepted immediately. It appeared, I think, in August of 2004. So what's that, 11 years ago almost now? I think that was the day, or maybe a little earlier, maybe July. But still, 2004, I believe, was the year. And I immediately got feedback right away from, yes, other writers who write for them, but also just people who had dropped by and read it. And some people said it was great. Other people said, yeah, this part didn't ring that true, or, gee, how come always these guys have to have white uniforms? People pick on whatever it is they want. So I really enjoyed it. It really made me feel like a writer. I mean, I don't know how else to describe that, but it made me feel like a writer, which was really cool.
That's fantastic. So what led you to submit, you said you've written quite a bit, especially in the RIM culture. What led you to submit this specific story to Non-Local? Why did you go back to this one, over a decade later, and submit it somewhere else?
I saw the offer, I think at the time, I don't even know if Non-Local was a phrase you were using then, I don't remember, but I thought it was 33rd Street Digital Press or something. Look, you're going to launch a new magazine, science fiction, looking for submissions, and I thought, I'm so into the novels, I can't, oh, wait, I've got some stuff I wrote. Oh, yeah, what about that one? Yeah, The Port Keeper. Yeah, I like that piece. I still like that piece. So I went back and reread it, and I hadn't read it in about 8 years, and thought, yeah, I'm better than that now, honestly. That's what I thought. So I made a couple of changes and small revisions and sent it off, etc. And then I believe you edited it, or you said, yes, it works. Yeah, we'd like to publish it. So I thought, hey, that's great. So if anything, I suppose, I guess the real reason I thought of that piece, other than every other piece, was it's always been sort of a special kind of thing, because in that story, if you read it, I mentioned a whole bunch of different types and sizes and colors and kinds of aliens, as well as humans, etc., of course. And I tend to write somewhat military. I'm not sure if that's the right word. Space Navy. Is that military? I guess. Spaceship, the whole kind of admirals and captains, and I tend to write in that vein because I find it so easy to understand, so easy to write. So I sent it, you accepted it, and it was great.
So out there on the rim, the edge of inhabited space, as you already explained it, humans are coexisting with countless other species. The main character, though, in your story is a human, and his struggles are very human. You mentioned he's a mid-level bureaucrat just struggling to get by, but he does really like what he does. Is Wiggins, the titular assistant port keeper, is he based on anyone in particular?
I thought about that, because they always say, write what you know. So maybe my grade 4 science teacher, that's him. No, actually, I thought about it. I really don't know someone that it's based on. It is, however, based on some of the looks I get when I'm standing in a lineup somewhere and somebody, will say this or that, and I'm thinking, oh, God, I couldn't do that job of looking at this person in front of me who obviously is trying to really lean on that bureaucrat, doing whatever it is they're doing, and try to make them feel like they're less. I really am fairly aware. I don't know why I'm so observant of that. I actually, I don't know that. I have to reflect on that perhaps too. Maybe there's another short story coming up. But I don't really know. Wiggins to me was an amalgam, if you will, of a whole bunch of different types and kinds and colors and social sizes I've written and seen about, etc. Oh, and I should also mention, just in passing, that yes, I'm 65, so I'm not a new young person, and I have been there and I've done that, and I've been reading sci-fi since my dad brought home an ace double. If you don't know what that is, you can Google it, in 1956. So I was 7 years old, and I struggled because I didn't understand stuff and had to go to him probably every other page and say, Dad, what is this, and how come they're doing that, etc. He helped me get through the first few of them, kind of thing, but he read science fiction his whole life, as did I. And it all goes back to the guy who created, if you will, the RIM, Bertram Chandler, a very famous, again, member of the of the Navy of his time, of course, which was the Merchant Marine. He was a Merchant Marine ship's officer, and he wrote stuff that he knew. So again, I'm using a word from the 60s, I glommed onto that whole style and type, et cetera, and thought, the Rim's a really cool place. It's different than here. Heck, it could be in another galaxy, doesn't matter. It could be anywhere I could write about. But for me, Bertram Chandler really did seem to bring it all to the same table. He was never real, in my opinion, he was never really a very successful writer. He must have done, 2, 3, 4 dozen novels kind of thing, plus a ton of short stories. Again, they all occurred out on the rim, in his rim, different than mine, but still on the rim of the galaxy, and I really liked it. So for me, if anything, I guess I'd have to admit this, to me this is sort of honoring a guy who I read 60 some odd years ago or 59 years ago and really fell in love with everything about science fiction through one man's writing. Yes, I've read Asimov. He's stunning. Heinlein, Clark, all of the guys from the Golden Age are wonderful. But for me, it was that single man. He's passed away now, gone. But I do go to his site that is still monitored online. A fellow has put up a site to him about him. He has still an agent. His books still sell and make, I guess, some kind of money for the family, his estate kind of thing. So, if I ever actually get a real good book out there, I'm going to dedicate it to my wife, but also to Bertram Chandler. He really did write some incredible science fiction in my world. I'm sorry, I went way off on a tangent there. I don't even remember what the heck the question was you asked me. But in any event, Wiggins, yes. Good guy. Is he? No, I don't really know he's anybody sort of in particular.
Great. No, it's fine. You can go off on tangents all you want. It makes for wonderful podcasts, trust me. So talking more about your version of the Rim, and since we're talking, it's just an audio. In case anyone can't tell, that's Rim with a capital R. You've envisioned, this entire galaxy-spanning network of planets and civilizations, and humans are woven into the fabric of this future reality. How much have you thought about sort of an overall plot arc or an overall history of this? Have you done a lot of world building, or are you just writing little slices of this reality as they come to you?
That's a good question. I do write the slices. Those are my short stories generally. Something will occur to me and I think, I've never seen that before. Or wait a minute, let me Google it. Yeah, I don't see any evidence that anybody's ever written about this or that kind of thing. So that's how the slices sort of come to me. But overall, the Rim, the world building environment, I'm one of those people that I don't use, I don't even know the name of that most popular outlining book software stuff. Scrivener maybe might be its name. I don't use that. I use my own. I'm a computer guy. I wrote my own. So I use my own kind of thing, but it's a database, of course, and it is chock full of stuff. I can tell you exactly how many years, and it depends on how you think a year works. Might be 365 days, but maybe it isn't a sol year. Maybe it's a year from, the Rudnick. That's one of the races out there. And their years tend to run about 12 picking ethnics, 12 human years. So it's all sort of different. I tend to outline intensively. I tend to write maybe a 3,000 word outline of what a chapter is going to be, and a chapter itself might be, maybe 5,000 words. So I think, as you can see, I tend to do a lot of detail stuff, and as I'm sure George R.R. Martin, the guy who's writing the Game of Thrones, knows, man, there are so many people who will pick up on, you said this in this book, and that doesn't make sense in that book. It's a constant chore to stay absolutely spot on with what is you say this year the crest on that ship was to what you said 4 years ago when you did the original book. So it's really detailed and a lot of work, but I would have it no other way. It's exactly what I love doing. So the Rim for me, yes, is very important, but I'm a heavy outliner, heavy outliner.
Do you have anything else said in the Rim universe that's out there currently that readers could go out and find, or is it just stuff that you're working on and you've yet to release it out there?
I've written 3 complete novels, all around 75 to 90,000 words each. And I gave myself, I know you understand, I gave myself a year. I said, I'm going to take a year, and before I go independent and do Amazon and Kindle and do all that kind of stuff, before I do that, I'm going to look for the traditional publishing model. So I've been going out to agents one by one. I don't have to tell anybody who's a writer about this. Yeah, I'm going over agents. My list of no's is quite nice. I have a sheet over there. What do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. I've had 7 no's so far in the past since October 1st. So October, November, December, 6 months, I've had 7 no's already. I mean, I find people who are science fiction agents who look constantly for that kind of stuff. I go directly to an agent, haven't done the publisher trick yet, haven't done the publish it yourself independent trick. I gave myself a year, and that year's up October 1st. Coming up at the end of this year. So I have whatever months it is left to try to find an agent. If I find one, then I will follow the traditional publishing model. I will find an agent, sign with them. They'll go out, they'll find a publisher. I'll do it that way, etc., etc. If, however, I don't find somebody by September 30th, I guess, of this year, then I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to figure out how to do this, etc., etc. I have a fair amount of experience already with Amazon. I have my own books out on Kindle, but they're all nonfiction professional books. There's not fiction at all. So I have those out, and I'm learning how to handle all of that in the meantime. It's kind of cool. So I get to practice on how to be a successful author, nonfiction admittedly, on Amazon in the meantime, and maybe one day I might have to actually do it for my fiction. But in passing, I don't think I have to tell you, I don't know how many writers there are in the world, and I don't know how many writers send out looking for an agent. You know, the synopsis and 5-page thingy, or the let me see a partial, all of the terms that we authors who are looking for an agent are familiar with. But I don't know how many of us there are, and there's only a limited number of agents, I think. I don't think there's probably more than, say, as a guess, maybe 500 agents on this continent. That's a guess. And I will try to get to every single one of them if I can. If I don't get a yes, I just keep going, kind of thing. Having said all that, I think the traditional model offers a lot. I've heard the talk, like everybody else has, that, oh, publish it yourself. You'll make more money. Well, yeah, but see, this isn't really about making money. It's about getting the product out there and having other people email me or see me here or whatever, or go to a forum somewhere and say, you know, I read Rudnick's book about the sleeper ship. Wow, what a great piece. I never would have thought of doing that with sleepers. Sleeper ship, of course, means, one of those generational ships that everybody goes to cryonic sleep and wakes up 1,000 years later, 5 light years away, because they move so slow. So I guess what I'm saying is that with that model, with the agent model, all I can tell you is I have to give it a full year's try, kind of thing, and maybe one day it'll be picked up by somebody, and then again, maybe not. Gosh only knows.
Specifically, getting back to the assistant portkeeper with the character of Wiggins, the main character in that story, was assistant portkeeper, was that story a one and done for him, or does he have more of a story to tell, do you think?
Well, I think maybe he's a one and done. I fleshed him out as good as I could. I kind of enjoyed writing about him. That little short story, I think it's only, 5, 6, 7,000 words or something. What it did was it made me think of course, as you're probably aware, I would go off on tangent. You know, I talked about the encyclopedia. Would that be like a Wikipedia? Like a galaxy-wide Wikipedia? Yeah, maybe. So that's got me. The story's sort of half done, half formulated over there. When I say over there in my office, I have stacks. You know, if you've been to a lawyer or an insurance guy, you know they have stacks of client files. I have writing files over there. So over there, I'm thinking about maybe trying to do something about Wikipedia meets the galaxy. Not really, but that's sort of, your short form kind of look. So I think Wiggins is probably done as a guess. But there were a couple of other people to meet there. We met a couple of Tessines. That's how I pronounce it. T-S-E-E-N-S. They're aliens that look like boxer dogs. I don't know why. My uncle had a boxer, loved that dog. It was 50 years ago now or more. So I just thought, why couldn't aliens look like other creatures? Why couldn't they look like a boxer dog? Maybe a little taller, maybe a little more robust, but they look like a dog. Why couldn't they? I suppose they can. So out on the rim, they do. I think there's something there with the two Tessines I talked about being traders. Not the best traders, but certainly traders of quality goods and services out on the rim. So I'm thinking about that one too. I guess what I'm saying is that for me anyways, don't know about other people, but for me, when I write, I tend to just pour it out. And as these other ideas come by, I literally take my hands off the keyboard and Post-it notes. Thank God, whoever invented Post-it notes was a genius. So I keep them in all different colors because they all mean something different and color-coded. And the green ones tend to hold my idea. Oh, that's right. The Tessines. Why don't they? Okay, second-class traders. So what's a second-class trader fault? Oh, what's a good thing about being a second-class? Well, you might not notice some. Oh, okay. I guess what I'm saying is tend to break off in the middle of things. It's almost like being in the barber's chair and having him start to cut your hair, and about halfway through you say, "Oh, yes!" And the idea comes, you literally get up out of the chair, say, "I'll be back later." You take the thing off, you pay him, because you got to pay him. You go, you get in your car, you drive home, you write that piece, you come back and sit in the chair a day later. And I've done that. So, anyway, I guess what I'm saying is, that at some point, I go off on a tangent, probably much like this podcast has been for your listeners. I think Wiggins is pretty cool. I think the Rim is pretty cool, but to be honest with you, I can't see him coming back and doing anything else at this point.
Sure. Now, there's a definite element of lightness. There's a touch of humor to the assistant portkeeper. You stay away from outright jokes, but it's pretty clear that you want to amuse your audience as much as anything.
Yeah, that's good. Put a smile on their face. Yeah, that's what I thought. His value to me was a light, I don't know if it's L-I-T-E, but it's a light science fiction tale. It's not serious. It's interesting to see. And also I thought at the very end, I won't spoil it by telling anybody what happens, but at the end he kind of comes onto his own, doesn't he? He kind of says, well, if that's what's going to happen, then I'm going to try this. And sure enough, it works. So for me, it put a real smile on my face when I wrote it.
Did you try to inject that? Do you consciously put that lightness, that humor into your writing, or is that just how things come out?
I don't know. I never thought of that. I guess the humor comes fairly straightforwardly when it does. I have some characters in my novel that, the hero of my novel, at least the first three, he's a starship captain, like a military guy, captain in the Navy, the Rim Navy, and he's a drunk. He's an alcoholic. I don't have any experience with that, honestly, but I can tell you the web and the Google are full of what kind of basic qualities would an alcoholic have if he was trying to hide it. That gave me a lot of insight, et cetera, et cetera. So this guy, I don't write humor for. I write and show you how he slides a shot of alcohol, scotch, into his coffee when no one's looking. I show you how he spills something on his shirt, so he gets to leave the bridge, run down to his special quarters, his quarters, and then go in and have a couple of drinks real quick in 2 minutes and run back up to the bridge to be the captain. I mean, that's not humorous, but it does show somebody trying to cope, if you will, with a set of skills that he can captain a ship. He's a very well-known, very famous a military guy in a fight. So far at least, he hasn't lost a spaceship fight yet, which is kind of cool. But he doesn't come across as humorous, so I haven't really thought about that. Writing, to me, the humor sort of comes all the time. I try to dull it down a little bit, or sometimes I do think, okay, wait, he can't do that. That's not, when a character doesn't do what a character's supposed to do, and I know you're a writer, and I've read your piece in this thing, so you know exactly what it's like. That's not true for that character. So sometimes, yes, humor does broach that area, but I'm much more interested on some of the other things, coping with being in charge of a spaceship with a crew of 600, it's 1,200 feet long, it goes faster than the speed of light, and you're drunk. Think about what that would be like. So that's
how much time are you able to devote to your writing on a daily basis? I know your job probably involves quite a bit of writing. We'll talk about the specifics. I want to get into the specifics of what you do on a daily basis here in a little bit. But focusing on your fiction writing, are you someone who sets a daily routine and sticks to it, or do you write more when you have the time and when an idea comes to you?
Well, certainly when an idea comes to me, I follow it. I put up my Post-its, and I've got a special little board over there with, lines drawn on a whiteboard. Post-its stick great to a whiteboard, by the way. I don't know why anybody would ever bother writing anything on a whiteboard. I just stick Post-its on them. But yeah, the ideas do come, so I stick them up there kind of thing. But I'm looking right now at my monitor, my computer monitor, and at the bottom, there's something there to look for a Canadian grant, because I understand writers can get grants. Don't know much about that, but that Post-it's there. And right beside it says, write one scene a day. And I try to write one scene a day. Whether it's a short story scene, just this much or that much, whether I'm on a novel or working on two at once sometimes, that kind of stuff. So I try to write at least every day. Having said that, you're right. Life does somewhat get in the way, like everybody else in the world. I do have a job. I'm self-employed, have been for a long time. But still, I do try to remember, oh, yeah, okay, good, yeah. I want to buy that new car in a year, so I guess I better put some money in the bank and sort of do that. You're right. Or you go to work kind of thing. And for me, writing is a major part of online marketing, which is what I do for money. It's my day job. So it sort of is the same, but it's not really the same. It's writing stuff that I just, lean back and roll my eyeballs at kind of stuff. Oh, it works. Clients are happy. Everybody's happy. I don't have any problems with that. They don't have any problems with that. Our clients renew year after year. But it's not the same as writing fiction for me. I really do want to try to drive that thought home, that if you're a writer for a living, then writing fiction is different, and it really is. It really does feel different. Yeah, does it ever?
Now, your day job, and you mentioned this, it's something that I spend a lot of time thinking about and working on as, trying to promote non-local. I'm positive that you could run circles around me with it. You work as an internet marketer, as an SEO specialist.
Yeah, I do.
How long have you been doing that?
Well, somebody asked me that a couple of weeks back. I think my first ever client was 1997. Which would make it, 18 years, something like that, I guess, 17, 18 years kind of thing, yeah. And I backed into it, like I did, what is it, I had to ask, what is it you want? Well, I'm going to start, so I figured the more people that come, then they'll buy more. So all I need for you to do is find a way to send me traffic. Oh, well, and that wasn't even a word we used then. Send me visitors to my website. Oh, okay, so how hard can that be? There's, 100 million websites right now. Uh-oh. So how am I going to do this? So I learned, paid attention, worked for a couple of companies on the side, was at the same time doing my other stuff at the time, I believe 97. Oh, I was at our local community college in the city of Toronto, working there, but paid a lot of attention, learned, etc. So got pretty good at it, good enough, I guess, to actually say, yeah, now I'm going to charge money for this kind of thing. In other words, I became the expert after working all those hours, kind of thing, but somebody else paid the freight. I had a day job that was not that. So yeah, I learned to do it that way. As I said, I backed into it. I never really even heard of it, kind of thing. So I was doing. Oh, and also I should also explain. I was doing it when nobody else was doing it either. So it was real easy. I mean, it really was easy to learn. It really was easy to do. Of course, Google has woken up. Google got created, then Google woke up. Everybody else woke up, and all the tricks we did back in 97 or 2007, they don't work anymore. You got to move with the times and have that ear to the ground, always listening, because somebody will change up, and what worked yesterday doesn't work today. Uh-oh, people are paying me for that traffic, so I better find out what does work. It's changed, if you will. But once you've done it as much as I have, it's really, and I go back on the web to 87, when we were using links. That may not be a term you're familiar with, but it was text-based. It was like CompuServe for the globe, rather than anything. If you even know what CompuServe is, again, use Google to find out that one. It really is interesting as the web sort of developed. I guess sort of I did too. I kind of just grew along with it, if you will. My skill level got better. So marketing's marketing. I took it in university, 47 years ago. Took it in university. So I'm quite aware of what it is. And has it changed? Yeah, a fair amount. I haven't done a direct mail campaign in, 25 years maybe, kind of thing. But they're still out there. I still get I don't know about your mailbox, but my mailbox is still full of flyers, still full of direct mail pieces. So it still works, kind of thing. It's not the way I market, but it's the way others still market, etc. So it's a growing concern, I suppose, that as the world changes, we all change with it. While I write 1,000 years in the future, what I see right around me is really about the same. It's here and now.
Do you find, and I'm going to indulge myself a little bit here, this isn't necessarily all that interesting to the audience tuning in to listen to an author talk, but do you find that it's getting easier or harder as time goes on to accomplish goals with SEO? In other words, are the patterns and the keys to success becoming more apparent with your experience, or is everything just getting so big and so complex that it's really just a jumbled mess?
Well, both of your answers are probably correct. It is a jumbled mess. There's no doubt about it. Google changes its algorithm 500 and some odd times a year, which is 1.5 times a day, give or take. So again, what worked yesterday can literally not work today. And the client will take a day or two to notice, but the call's going to come, hey, what the heck happened to, yeah, well, you better have an answer. So yeah, there's all that to fight against all the time. Having said that, once you do learn what tends to work, once you learn how to change what it is you're getting your client or doing for them, ghosting it or writing it yourself or, yada, yada, whatever. Once you learn how that works, and once you learn how to show the clients that, yes, here's our Google Analytics. Last month we had, 1,000 visitors. This month we got 1,200, and next month we're going to have more than that. And then once you show them that you can actually do the job, it gets, how do I describe it? It gets maybe not easier to do, but your level of confidence grows so much that all of a sudden everything's changing every day. It's like hitting a moving target all the time. But all of a sudden, as your confidence gets better, you seem to be able to listen more observantly. I don't know, do things more observantly. I belong to the Canadian Mastermind Group. There's 27 of us, I guess. I just looked at my Skype deck because we're talking on Skype. There's 27 people on that list, and they're the best in the country, kind of thing, which is great. We talk, we compare notes all the time. Hey, if you click on this, then that happens, and what happens over here? Oh, well, I've tried 3 of those. Here, let me send you through a link. You can see this. We tend to help ourselves, if you will, like each other. We don't have the same clients, of course. We're all different and distinct. We're all over the country kind of thing. And we even have actually access to the U.S., the big U.S. group, too, which is wonderful. So I'm sort of, I don't know how to describe it. I'm in a niche, a space that lets me do what it is I want to do fiction-wise because I'm successful enough at what I do when it comes to the online stuff. And that really is, like I just said, I'm not saying older is wiser. I'm not. It's just I've been there, done that, so it doesn't work anymore. Okay, but what about this? Remember when we tried that 4 months ago? And, oh, yeah, okay, let's try it. It really does seem to be not as much work as others would imagine. Is that? I don't know if that's... and I'm not trying to sound conceited at all. It's just, you know what works or you don't.
No, certainly that makes a lot of sense. I hear you. It's one of those things that I think you just got to break through, and once you reach a certain point, it is going to become second nature. There's a lot of people out there slinging, this is the secret, that's the secret, and it's hard to know what to do, but I've always got the feeling that once you do know what you're doing, it becomes a lot easier.
That's right, absolutely. And by the way, I like that second nature. Thank you. I forgot about that phrase. That's exactly what it is, I guess. You know what you're doing, and it's second nature to try. Oh, that does. Oh, how about these 3 things? I tried. How about you know exactly where to go for the answer. So, second nature. Yeah, it's good.
Given your experience with the internet since its inception and working as a marketer this whole time, what's your take on the current ebook scene? With tens of thousands of people throwing books out into the marketplace, there's no real quality control. Most people have no cohesive marketing structure. What's your take on how it exists at the moment, especially since you're considering entering it in the next... I mean, you already have entered it as a nonfiction author, but as a fiction author, you're thinking about entering it here in the next 6 months.
Yeah, I tend to go to forums and boards a lot. I call them the same thing, that kind of community, if you will, consensus of experts as well as newbies or whatever you want to call them. I tend to go to those a fair bit. That's sort of an old holdover I have from days with bulletin boards and dial-up and, all that kind of stuff. So I tend to go to the Amazon KDP support forum. I tend to go to K-boards. I tend to go to those kinds of things, Kindle World. I tend to look at those places or create space, for the printed product. I tend to look at those spaces as places where experts, and I might admittedly be one in some areas, but maybe not the areas that people are talking about, where experts actually go and do try to help others and say, so how do I get to be an Amazon bestseller? Well, there's really, I guess the best way is just write a damn good book. Write the best book you ever could have. And if that means another edit, then edit. You know what I mean? So there's that thought, and that's a good one. At the same time, there are a ton, and I mean a ton of I'm going to use the word carefully here, tips. I was going to use tricks, but it's really not tricks. There are a bunch of tips to try this location, that location, to help push it this way, to help push it that way. Okay, so what about Smashwords? Does that seem to work for you? Well, okay, but drafted digital work, but really? What about Goodreads? Oh, Goodreads, you get that byplay between, if you will, all people in the same lifeboat, and it's a lifeboat, really. It's everybody wants to do better. Everybody wants those sales every month, every week kind of thing, and they want to do better. Honestly, I just thought about this, but I seldom see people saying, could somebody please edit my book for me? Or here's a paragraph, here's 4 pages. Could you please write I seldom see that. What I usually see is, I've written it, it's done, how do I sell it? And that's okay. I understand that. That's really part of the earning, if you will, that everybody wants to get. But at all those places, all those various boards and forums, it's really of interest to me to just log in and read. And I get to read about so much different stuff, if you will, about how people look at this, people look at that. It really, because I guess that's my nature. I'm a researcher. I'm a soaker-upper of information kind of thing. So for me, it's really a value. I sometimes, honestly, think, oh, gee, I hope that works for books, because I know it sure as all heck wouldn't work for a website trying to sell you, iPhone covers, because that isn't going to work. That area I know. How to sell an iPhone cover. Do I? No, but I know how to get people to come to the site to buy them, kind of thing. That I know. So I sometimes do see that kind of thing happening. But at the same time, I guess if you think about it, the whole marketing end of selling your book, like trying to do really, really, really well with your book, it's really not sort of fixed and carved in stone at this point. And that, to be honest with you, I think, is really based on, in my opinion, the most basic fact of all. If the book isn't as good as it could be, then you're not going to get that word-of-mouth stuff. I mean, I've never read those Shades of Black, 50 Shades of Grey, whatever the name of that. I mean, I don't even know the name. So there you go. That's how far out of touch I am with current, if you will, or contemporary books, etc. But I guess perhaps, as I understand the story, she was independent and some publisher or agent came along and scooped her into the fold, and now she's making billions of dollars by selling her books. Good for her. Great. But until she brings out the book, here's how you do it, I don't really think that there's going to be sort of a roadmap for how to do it. And at the same time, it's the quality of the writing. Without that kind of referral, and I just read a good book, you got to read it. What's the guy's name? Well, it's, who cares what the guy's name is? Doesn't matter. You should just read this book. It's really well written. I think until maybe more writers who are independents try to invest more time into doing the writing, honestly, I think it's going to be very difficult to try to come up with a roadmap of here's how you market, here's the 17 sites you got to go to, here's what you got to do to get it done kind of thing. Well, I can go to Fiverr.com and buy 7 reviews for $5. Great, terrific. And will they have any value? I don't know. Will they? You tell me. So I don't really. I guess, Daniel, what I'm saying is there's really no set answer other than, I guess, coming back to what I consider still to be the basic. Write a great book. Write an absolutely great book, and it will, honest to God, find its way to the top of the lists.
I think the unfortunate thing, and you brought up 50 Shades of Grey, and you mentioned you haven't read it. I've never read it either, but I do know what I've heard about it, and supposedly it was not well written at all. That's a novel that got to the top more because of the sensational subject matter than of the quality of the writing. Unfortunately,
I've heard exactly the same. Yep.
So obviously, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I'm an editor. That's what I do. Step one is write a good book, and write a book that is professionally put together. Unfortunately, that's not always what's going to get you to the top. But still, definitely do it if you want to be taken seriously. Well, thanks for joining me today, Jim.
It's been great, Daniel. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk to readers.
Once again, I've been talking with Jim Rudnick, author of the short story The Assistant Portkeeper, which appears in issue number 1 of Non-Local Science Fiction, available now on nonlocalsci-fi.com and through major ebook retailers like Amazon, iBooks, and Barnes & Noble. Thanks for listening to this episode of Quantum Flux, the podcast of Non-Local Science Fiction magazine and nonlocalsci-fi.com. Join me next week when I'll be talking to Robert Paul Blumenstein, author of the short story Delivery to Venus, which appears in issue number 1 of Non-Local Science Fiction. Subscribe to this podcast through iTunes or our YouTube channel so that you never miss an episode. Music was provided by Kevin MacLeod through incomtech.com.